Canby City Council regular meeting, November 7th, 2012. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance and a moment of silence. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. You stay standing for a moment of silence for military personnel worldwide. Thank you. Welcome everyone to communications tonight. Okay, we have citizen input and community announcements. I have one card. Yep.
Good evening, Mayor and City Councilors. My name is Bev Doolittle, and I'm the Executive Director of the Canby Area Chamber of Commerce. We all know how important small business is to our economy. Small businesses generate 60 to 80% of the net new jobs over the last decade. The Canby Area Chamber of Commerce would really wants to raise awareness and get people involved. We're all in this together, and we can make a difference. Everyone knows that your dollar goes a long way when you buy a product or a service from a small business. That money goes right back into our local economy. And that's important because half of working Americans either own or work for a small business. And the small businesses create 2 out of every 3 new jobs. Between Black Friday and Cyber Monday is another day, Saturday, November 25th. Which is the 3rd annual Small Business Saturday. A day to celebrate and support Canby small businesses and do what they can do for our community. We're asking you to please join the Canby Area Chamber of Commerce and help support our small businesses. This is an opportunity for businesses, local governing boards, and citizens to help our community thrive. Just don't talk about saving local stores and maintaining our hometown character. Take action by shopping your local small businesses. We are working with the Canby Herald and with the businesses in town and going to promote this as much as we can to encourage people to take the time this is a brick and mortar, go into your small businesses, take the time on that Saturday to do your Christmas shopping, your holiday shopping, and support what we have here in town. So watch the Canby Herald, watch the Chamber's newsletter, and watch the stores as they put signs in their windows that help support Small Business Saturday. So that's what I have.
Thank you.
Thanks, Beth. Thanks.
Okay, Mayor's business. Basically, Monday, October 29th, we had the ribbon cutting for our new police facility, and also it was an open house that afternoon. I think a lot of the public was able to get out and go through the building and see how great it is that we have a very good operating new police facility. On Thursday the 1st, I attended a C4 meeting in Clackamas over at the Clackamas County, and Friday, November 2nd, we had Dragonberry groundbreaking and also had First Friday. Kim, you want to start this tonight?
Oh, no.
Yeah.
Changing it up.
Yeah, I get the lead off. Well, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I likewise attended the Community and Development Visioning meetings. And my thanks to all the great Ford folks that have been chairing and facilitating those meetings. Did a wonderful job. Thank you very much. The Sequoia Bridge Open House that was held at Hope Village, attended that. And our thanks to Kurt McLeod and his staff. And likewise attended the Dragonberry groundbreaking. Great to have those folks in town. Nice to see it finally come. On the Canby utility front, the Knightsbridge substation is still in the permitting process, moving along well there. And Canby Utility approved an increase in water hookup fees from the main to the meter only if Canby Utility does the work. Doesn't affect us in our everyday bill, just on new construction and hookups. And that concludes. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
I didn't know if you were hopscotch.
No.
The only thing I'll mention in terms of Main Street liaison, how appreciative I am of our Main Street volunteers for a wonderful Halloween open house and food raiser for the food bank. We had students from Canby High School dress up as Alice's to provide guides through the open house, and we found a very good use for our old police station by turning it into a haunted building. I'm not sure we'll be able to do that every year, but it was an excellent job. And some of our Main Street Promotions Committee showed up to man the barricades, as it turns out. Sometimes it was quite heavy weather, and also thanks to the school superintendent who led the parade, and to the Canby Fire District who provided a lost child platform at the event.
Yes, report on two of the liaisons that I'm responsible for. One, the Historical Society. Before long, be membership renewal, and new this year is with the new renewal, you'll receive one of our calendars, which will show some of the pictures of, historical pictures of Canby. And most of you know have been looking forward to those over the years, and this time, if you get a renewal in your membership, you'll get the free calendar. Also, the Volunteer Appreciation and Annual Meeting will be held on the 20th of this month at the depot, and encourage all of you to attend to that. And I don't know what the program is just to be announced yet, but that's an opportunity where they show appreciation to all the volunteers that work in the depot. Some of you don't realize that usually we have one paid docent, but we have one now that's filling in because they're in the process of interviewing some for that position, since we lost one of our paid people for that. But when they're open 3 days a week, that is filled in with volunteers, docents, and so they are people that are trained to answer questions about Canby history and show them through the depot. So again, invitation, if you have not been down to the depot and take a look at, they're always putting up new displays down there about some history of Canby. As far as the transit, we will have a board meeting next Thursday at 5:30 at the City Hall Conference Room. Encourage you to attend that, and if you have any questions on it or about the transit system. Also, I'd like to again highlight the shopping shuttle that we have for people who are unable to get around to the Canby Market, Canby Square, which Safeway and Thriftway, that there's a shopping shuttle, and the details on that are on our website, or you can call. This gives you a dial-a-ride customers who are eligible to ride this free shuttle. The shuttles work on serving North Canby riders on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday afternoons, and Tuesday and Thursday mornings. On the south side of Canby, that's south side of 99, riders on Monday, Wednesday, Friday mornings, and Tuesday, Thursday afternoons. Riders get a free round trip to one of the shopping areas, and I think approximately there an hour. And we ask that you limit your purchases to what you can carry on, because the driver cannot pick your groceries out and put them on the shelf for you. So, also you got to have to make reservations ahead for that. And details again, I said if you have questions on that, call the CAT office at 503-266-4022. The other thing I'd like to mention is was mentioned about, one of the other councilors mentioned about the visioning, and we have consolidated all of these different 4 meetings into the final one, which will be on the 15th at Cutsworth Old Town Hall. And so I encourage all of you to come out. There was 4 different groups that have worked, I say groups on 4 meetings, but there was probably about 5 tables of people at each one of those meetings. Consolidate all these ideas that came forth from the first meeting, and those then will be presented, and we'll be coming up with a work plan from that and some action steps. So I encourage some of you who have not made the first meetings, don't feel that you're left out. You have an opportunity. So this is an opportunity for you to put input into what you want this town to look like in the next 5, 10, 20 years. And so this is important that we get your input on it. So don't complain if you say, well, the city's going the wrong way and you haven't been down there and voice your opinion, so here's your opportunity. That concludes my report.
Mr. Mayor, a couple things. On the Planning Commission front, we have a couple openings coming up on our Planning Commission. Commissioners Tessman and Schlegel are not re-upping for the Planning Commission, nor is Chairman Ewert. So we've had one person step forward, which will be coming to us on the first meeting in December to, I guess, put them in position. So if you have any interest, please see City Hall about doing that. On the chamber front, we have Light the Night event coming up, so that's the 13th through the 17th of December at the fairgrounds. Tickets are on sale for that event. And also on the chamber front, we'll be adopting a couple of families for the holidays, so if you can help, please see Bev at the chamber office for anything on that you can give. Also, on a personal note, attended the Dragonberry groundbreaking, which is going to be an impressive facility, to say the least. And then, not to reiterate all the other fun things that were said, I will say that this Friday is opening night of Canby High School's production of Our Town. Please come out, check it out. There's some great student actors and I believe some first-time community actors. Our very own Penny Hummel and Superintendent Steech are involved, Lieutenant Tro, Judy Oz, and myself. That's all that I have.
Sketchy bunch.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I also attended 4 visioning meetings in the Sequoia Bridge opening. Went to the police department ribbon cutting and then returned that evening with my family for an open house. So my son was thrilled to get to see the parts of the police station he's never yet been seen before, so that was fun for the family. I also attended the Halloween parade, so if you saw a giant baby walking down 2nd Avenue, that would have been me. I got a few looks from the small children. I think they were maybe frightened by that, but anyway, we had a lot of fun. And also the Main Street Promotions Committee met this week. We're finalizing some plans for some events that will complement the Chamber's effort for Small Business Saturday. We're going to have the First Avenue grand reopening celebration from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. that day, with lots of activities going on to bring more folks downtown and patronize those small businesses while they're down there. And we'll be also attending the visioning meeting on the 15th, as well as the library board meeting next week, so I'll have more to report next time. And that's all I have now.
Come back, Rich.
Thank you. For those the council knows, I've just returned from a 5-week trip, a far too long of a trip. But in part of my trip, I spent a few days in one of the bottom 5 poorest countries in Africa, and also one of the most dangerous countries in Africa. And I want to tell you how nice it is to be back in safe, clean, prosperous Canby. We are very fortunate to live in this country.
Mr. Mayor, I move we could approve the consent agenda, adopt the minutes of the October 17, 2012 City Council regular meeting, off-premises liquor license application for the Willamette Valley Country Club, a change of ownership of their liquor license application for Pacific Northwest Petroleum, Inc.
Mr. Mayor, I'll second that, but I also wish to abstain on the Willamette Valley liquor license, as I am one of the members and owners of Willamette Valley, and so I'll not be voting on that item.
Okay.
And Mr. Mayor, I'll abstain on that. I was not in attendance at the 17th meeting. I've read the minutes, but I'll trust to my other councilors to approve it.
Been moved and seconded to adopt the minutes of the October 17, 2012 City Council regular meeting, an off-premise liquor license application for Willamette Valley Country Club, and a change of ownership liquor license application for Pacific Northwest Petroleum, Inc. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Passes 4-0. Okay. We're now going into a public hearing, TA 1201, ZC 1202, Fred Meyer Stores, Inc. Go ahead.
Okay, thank you. Joseph Lindsay, City Attorney from the City of Canby. Before we get started, I just wanted to clarify kind of the scope of the hearing as a way of trying to control, I guess, what could be a mountain of evidence. I know that there was a 280-page packet that each one of you got. That evidence was presented to the Planning Commission. It was presented to you in the form of those packets, and so you have heard that evidence. The task at hand tonight is to decide on the Planning Commission's recommendation on one issue, which is the text amendment, the proposed text amendment to the overlay, the business overlay, and not to necessarily, because you don't have to consider it isn't before you because it wasn't decided at the Planning Commission level, the site and design review. And so I just wanted to be clear because not only have you've read, and so before you is 280 pages of evidence, of which nobody has to duplicate. And so and also there's a relevance piece with the fact that there's this singular issue before you guys. And so everybody should be aware that you have heard what was heard, and so it's got to be either, you know, new stuff or relevant stuff in order to kind of speed things along.
And the Planning Commission ruling was?
It was, their recommendation only
Their recommendation.
was for denial of the text amendment.
Just wanted to have that on the record.
Okay, and Angie Leonard is here to present also kind of for the Planning Commission as a staff report to kind of hone down the issues for the council as well.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
Could you clarify then that our role tonight is that we're serving in the receipt of a recommendation from the Planning Commission? So are we sitting here as a legislative body or a quasi-judicial body?
Well, this is, I guess, intellectually interesting and legally important, so I'll talk about it. There is, in a sense, a hybrid function, although I would say under Oregon law, the Strawberry Hill case, that amendments to comprehensive land use plans and such are seen as legislative in nature. However, they're viewed more quasi-judicial when they have more to do with actions that affect one singular person or one singular parcel of land. And from, as you know from the packet, this is more the case. The latter is the case in this instance. So you are kind of operating in a quasi-judicial manner. And what I've been told from planning is that one of the necessities of doing quasi-judicial actions is that you have to have had certain notices given to owners of nearby properties of the land that's being decided upon. And so those notices have actually gone out because they went out. The Planning Commission at the time was also considering, although they did not eventually rule on, the design review. And so notices were properly given, so people have been made aware. But you guys should be aware that you're operating both in a quasi-judicial manner, and so you know you'd be best served to get any sort of ex parte context out in the open and disclose any sort of information that you've gleaned other than here and other than in the packet. And also, you will be acting also in a legislative fashion. If you are to pass this, you will obviously have to legislate and pass an ordinance, of which if you go with the denial, then you don't have to pass that ordinance, so you won't be acting in a legislative fashion. And I hope that's as clear as mud, but...
I was going to
Good-
say.
good-
Good mud.
And the significance of this is that should for some reason somebody want to appeal our decision to LUBA, then it would be a review of our technical precision as well as the record itself.
Correct. Well, or at least those arguments could be made.
Yeah.
And so you would be best served to cover all your bases.
Any other questions for staff? Okay, real quick, I'll go ahead and read the public hearing format. The matter present before the hearing body requires a public hearing. All interested persons in attendance shall be heard on the matter. If you wish to testify on this matter at the appropriate time, please step forward to the microphone, state your name, address, and interest in the matter. Those people other than the applicant that are interested in testifying as either proponents or opponents, please indicate your desire to speak by raising your hands at this time. So everybody that's for the applicant, raise their hand if they're going to testify. 3. And okay, you, how about against the applicant? So I have 1, 2. Okay, thank you. Okay, you may be limited in time for your presentation. The applicant will have a total of 10 minutes. The proponents will be allowed 5 minutes each, and the opponents will be allowed 5 minutes each. The applicant will then have 3 minutes or 5 minutes for rebuttal. All questions must be directed through the chair. Any evidence to be considered must be submitted to the hearing body for public access. All written testimony received, both for and against, shall be summarized by staff and presented briefly to the hearing body during the staff report. All applicable substantive criteria for evaluating the application are displayed on the walls. Please direct your testimony to those criteria or other criteria in the plan or land use regulations which you believe apply to the decision. Failure to raise an issue accompanied by statements or evidence sufficient to afford the decision to maker and the parties an opportunity to respond to the issue may preclude appeal to the Land Use Board of Appeals based on that issue. Conflict of interest. At this time, I would ask any member of the hearing body who has a conflict of interest, please indicate the nature and extent of the conflict and whether you intend to participate or abstain from hearing the present matter.
Currently, I have no conflict. At one point, I used to own a quarter of the block, the subject block, at the west end of the block, and I have not owned that for a number of years now. I've had no contact and no conflict.
I have no conflict.
I have no conflict, but we'll add that currently the applicant, Ryan Oliver, and I are on the Chamber of Commerce Board, as well as he is my insurance agent. And we have not had conversation about this. And during one of our Chamber Board meetings, we did have a presentation from one of the groups, but I recused myself from that meeting and did not hear that presentation. So that's...
I have no conflict.
I have no conflict. I'll participate.
None, Mr. Mayor, I'll participate.
No conflict, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, ex parte contact. Also, if any member of the hearing body has had any ex parte contact with anyone prior to this hearing, including a visit to the site, please declare the nature and extent of the contact at this time.
No contact.
stated and drove by.
Okay. I received,
Drive by all the time.
I received an email that I did not, I read, but I did not go back on it or anything like that one, from a Mr. Lang stating that he felt the Planning Commission did a bad job on their decision. So I did not bring that with me tonight. I somewhere at the house. I can get that if you need it for the record. That's all I have on it.
No ex parte contact.
No ex parte contact here. I did, with permission of landowner, put a Save Our Schools sign on the property several months ago, so I guess you could say that was a visit.
Okay, I get, go ahead.
No ex parte contact. I'm familiar with the site just by driving by.
Okay, I guess I do have one other one. I was allowed by the property owner to have my sign on the, on their site for running for mayor, so I do have two issues there. Okay, does any member of the audience have any question for any counselor or the mayor regarding ex parte contact or conflict of interest? Okay, the public hearing will be conducted as follows. Staff report, questions if any by the hearing body or staff, open public hearing for testimony, opponent or applicant, then proponents and rebuttal, closed public testimony, questions by the, if any, by the hearing body, and then discussion by the hearing body. A decision shall be made by the hearing body at the close of the hearing, or the matter will be continued to a date certain in the future. This will be the only notice of that date you will receive. Does anyone have any questions about the procedure of the hearing?
Sir.
If not, I will open the hearing.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and councilors. This is my first council meeting. I've been here a little over a year, but this is my first meeting, so thank you
Welcome.
for having me. Hopefully I will review what's before, the decision before you tonight, and I hopefully will take not more than 15 minutes to present my staff report. And I know this project has involved a lot of information, and your packet was 200 and something pages long. we had to give that to you because it is part of the record, but I understand it might be a little confusing, so I welcome any questions that you might have. So, and I will present the processes we've been understanding it and how we've been processing it. The text amendment, zone change, part of the application, it's actually text amendment / zone change, are legislative type 4 land use processes with a final decision required by council. The type 3 land use, the design review that goes over the design and the lighting and the trees and landscaping and access and parking, that's all a type 3 quasi-judicial land use process with final approval by the Planning Commission. So that's why you do have some information in your packets with site designs. There are some references in some of the letters. They're all interconnected, so it's kind of hard to separate everything, but know that you're deciding on that boundary tonight, not on the design. But if you do approve the what's before you tonight, then the Planning Commission will hear the design review portion because it's contingent upon you approving that tonight. Okay? So I will give a quick overview of the application and then what staff has heard and decided, and some arguments of for and against this application. There's pros and there's cons, so it's up to you guys as a decision body to weigh the pros and the cons and make a decision like any other decision. So this project is located at 99E and Locust. This is the site. It's zoned Highway C2 commercial, which this is the portion of the zoning map up here. The underlying zone is C2. Then I'll go over the next slide, the overlay zone. So underlying zone C2, which allows a fuel station. Let's see, a traffic study was required for this, but not for this application, but not a more intensive state transportation TPR analysis. It was that a more intensive review was not required, and the city traffic engineer concurs that was okay not to require that. The opponents will probably bring up this later, so we can discuss that more later, but I think for now just know that the city didn't require a basic traffic analysis, but not a more intensive one. So that will probably be brought up. And so we found, after we get these applications and we review them and see if they're in compliance with our zoning code and conflict with the policies of the comprehensive plan, statewide goals. Staff has found that it does not conflict. Oregon Department of Land Conservation and Development, DLCD, requires that we notify them when we're doing text amendments or any legislative action. They have not commented. We did do several notices for property owners 200 feet from the property, from the site. We have received one general notice comment form in favor of the project, and then also we notify all agencies, utility agencies, city engineer. City engineer has a couple of recommended design-related conditions, but they're not really part of this decision, but they did recommend some conditions about the sidewalk and access and drainage, but that's all stuff that would be considered with the design review portion, not this. So, but they are in your packet because they're part of the record. So, same with the city traffic engineer, and same with comments from ODOT. I think
access, and if this goes back to the planning commission, we have heard from ODOT by now, but all their input and conditions related to ODOT would be something considered at the design review stage. I think you've seen those in your packet too. So yeah. So the site's also in this overlay zone called the Downtown Overlay Zone, which has different sub areas. And the whole zone is this entire map. And it has the core commercial, which is this, the transitional commercial, which is more of the homes and home-based businesses and different type of design standards for that, and the outer highway commercial. And then, so the underlying C2 zone, which up here allows a fuel station, but the overlay core commercial would not allow it. The overlay core commercial has design standards that are for pedestrian-oriented developments. So this proposal does not, it conflicts with that. It requires floor area ratio requirements, setback requirements, buildings to the street, design standards for certain types of windows, and just more sort of downtown oriented designs. So the proposed fuel station doesn't allow that. But the outer highway commercial portion of this does. It allows more auto-oriented developments. So that is why they are, the applicant has applied for this text amendment / zone change, so that the above properties are within this zone and not this one. And this one is like outer highway commercial. So we're talking about these properties right here being in the OHC outer highway commercial sub area of the downtown overlay. Excuse me, I'm looking for. So any questions so far?
For the sake of the cameras, could you go back a picture and show us right here where the proposed change is?
The boundary is, sorry, it's shifting from here to right here. So this is in the outer highway commercial portion, and then the boundary's right there.
Okay. So just the vacant.
Yeah, it's just the subject properties. So, so that is what you're deciding on. Do you want to shift this line from here to over here, essentially?
So Angie, I just want to check for my understanding. So the downtown overlay does not allow for a fuel station, or it does, but it has certain...
It would allow something like this. It would allow a fuel station, but it controls the design of it.
Okay.
It wants a pedestrian-oriented fuel station, which is, I don't think there's a whole lot of pedestrian-oriented fuel stations out there, but, yeah.
I can only fill my lawnmower can so many times,
So, when I Googled this pedestrian-oriented fuel station, I couldn't find very many pictures, but I found this one, so it would be something like that.
Okay.
So I'm gonna now go over some arguments for and against it that we've heard and thought of. So I'm gonna first go over some arguments against this, and it would be a denial of the application. So one argument is a fuel station could be put here and you don't have to change the boundary if it's designed in a pedestrian-oriented manner. Then it would be allowed and you don't need to change the boundary to do that.
There, in the TSP and the Gateway Plan, there calls for a crosswalk / pedestrian refuge island somewhere between Knott and Locust. So as the idea is, it's not written in stone, but the idea is that it would be appropriate to have a pedestrian refuge crossing type island at Locust and 99. So that potentially could conflict with a fuel station. There's the Welcome to Canby sign across the street from the development, indicating that that might be someone's vision for the start of downtown. It's really, where is downtown supposed to start with these downtown type design standards? So I think that's something you need to consider. And then also the ODOT STA Special Transportation Area boundary that also corresponds to the Gateway Plan boundary and allows more pedestrian-oriented designs. That's aligned with this core commercial line. It's not necessarily, we talked to ODOT and they don't necessarily have to have both of them coincide, but if the boundaries change, then they would kind of have a disconnect between the two. So the ODOT more pedestrian-friendly oriented flexible design standards coincides with the core commercial boundary. So, and another argument is if we allow the code to be changed, the plan to be changed, then it sets a precedent to not uphold our plans. So that's just some arguments against or denial, and then some arguments for. Is that the base zone allows it, so it should be allowed. That's one of the big arguments that we've heard and that could be considered. Also, if you put a crosswalk at Locust, there's a fuel station. That doesn't necessarily mean there could be a crosswalk there in a pedestrian refuge island and a fuel station. I mean, it's possible to accommodate them all. So I think one maybe could exist with the other with some good engineering. There's I didn't go over this boundary argument. So I think the applicant has argued that if you shift it over, it would align here. It would make more of a straight line when you redraw the map. That would be an argument for it. If you shifted this over, this would kind of line up better. But at the same time, the redrawn line is going to be kind of jagged because of the shape of this tax lot right here. So, that's just an argument that we've heard for and against that. So, see some more arguments for approving it. There's, as I've looked into the whole overlay zone itself, there's some areas out here where the boundaries are kind of imprecise. They cut through tax lots. And I haven't been able to really hear any very concrete reasons for how these boundaries were decided. So maybe some people that were involved in when this downtown overlay zone was established in 2008 give some more insight into that, but it seems like the boundaries might be kind of arbitrary. So that would be an argument. That would be an argument for approving this. So sorry. And let's see, the city you could benefit from having some gas tax profits. It allows another business in Canby. We want to be business friendly. There's other gas stations right in the vicinity, including right across the street. That ODOT boundary doesn't necessarily need to be aligned with our core downtown boundary. It's not contingent. It would help give the community access to affordable gas, and also the argument that maybe when this downtown relay zone was established, it's too broad along 99. Maybe it should be concentrated more along Grant, Elm, and Ivy, to maybe the argument, and also that's the applicant submitted the Main Street manual for the record, which states that a good Main Street is really about a quarter of a mile concentrated. So there's an argument that just stretching this downtown overlay so far along 99 is impractical. So. So the Planning Commission has recommended denial of this application with 3-1 vote. Their reasons were summarized that concerned that the adopted text and downtown overlay boundaries were the result of extensive planning efforts, and that shouldn't be questioned. Concerns that the traffic studies that were conducted with this are inadequate. Concerns that it conflicts with the Gateway Corridor Plan, and concerns that it doesn't meet text and map amendment criteria. The applicant failed to demonstrate a real need for this change, and that it conflicts with an existing intent to create a pedestrian-oriented environment along the highway. And then the dissenting vote felt that the traffic issues in the code for the text and amendment, everything had been addressed, and from a pro-business standpoint should be allowed. I think I skipped on one point that I wanted to make. This is a existing high pedestrian area. This is zoned R2 right to the south and to the east. So there's a lot of bikes and pedestrians and people walking in that area, right? And there's residential. Keep that in mind. There's residential areas right adjacent to the site, which I think. They might benefit more from a pedestrian-oriented type development there, but also that's what the zoning is. So that's what kind of happens when you have a commercial zoning right abutting a residential zone. You're going to have businesses right across the streets from houses. So, but that's also something else I would consider as you make your decision. And so just remember you're considering that boundary tonight, and what the proper, consider where downtown is supposed to begin. And the core commercial requires more pedestrian-oriented designs, and the outer highway commercial allows more auto-oriented designs. So that concludes my report. Any questions?
Thank you.
I have a question, if no one else. You mentioned a couple different times, and it was on one of your slides, that was a high pedestrian area. Is there any definition to high pedestrian area, or is that an anecdotal comment that it's high pedestrian?
Just from observation.
In reading all of this, perusing all of this, I didn't see, and I think I saw a comment from something in here that, and I think you commented on it, that there was, there's some research where you tried to find how the line got put where it is, and it appears to be possibly arbitrary, because we don't have,
You know, in the enacting ordinance, there's not any,
yeah, so there's no reason it wasn't put at Knott or all the way down to Redwood. I mean, there's no history, no,
If I could jump in real quick, Matilda Diaz, our long-range planner, wasn't really involved in the debates, discussion and stuff in 2007 and 8 when this took place, but she was around, and so she heard some of the things, and we talked about, and I reviewed some of the staff reports and records that occurred back then, and can't really find anything that really established why were the sub-area boundaries placed where they were. And so it seems fairly reasonable to assume that they placed the core commercial sub-area boundary, which is where the outer highway starts, near Locust, because when you're coming into town, this is the first point at which you see businesses occurring on both sides of the street. And there was also historically a entrance sign to the community there, where we have our fancy gateway sign now. Well, apparently, historically, there's always been a sign there. And so it seems kind of natural that that's kind of something different. You've finally arrived at what you might call the downtown area. And it's kind of an edge. And so whether that's could have been a block difference or something like that, I don't know.
okay, thanks.
Well, so you mentioned the history of the overlay. Is there any further information on the history of that? I mean, other than...
Well, and one thing you want to keep in mind that we're talking about shifting of a sub-boundary within the overlay. And so we're not affecting the overlay and where it applies in town. We're affecting where two different design standards within sub-areas apply. And so in some aspects that's an important distinction because we're not affecting the overlay district and where it applies in town. Just the fact that the sub-areas have different design and development standards that apply that are supposed to result in slightly different character of development along those sub-areas. And so that's what we've been trying to emphasize, is that there's this thought that the outer highway is accommodating the typical strip and vehicular-oriented development, but it's doing it now with the overlay in a manner that is quality development. And there are standards in place that's going to help architectural standards and design standards that will make that development better than if we didn't have the overlay district. Then when you move into the core commercial area, it's saying, hey, we really want something that is more dense, taller buildings, build up to the street, and those kind of things that lend itself to pedestrian orientation. Where should that start? Well, the sub-area boundaries generally indicated about where that should start.
and I haven't, we looked into finding the exact reasons and we haven't found any specifics.
So one of the concerns from the Planning Commission was that it affects the Gateway Corridor Plan. Does it?
Well,
Other than the pedestrian refuge?
in terms of planners and working for 18 months on a gateway corridor plan, it's in their minds, but it shouldn't be relevant to their consideration now because it's not an adopted document. So in legalese terms, we shouldn't be considering that.
But isn't the refuge point, isn't that part of the TSP which has been adopted?
The refuge point, the pedestrian crossing, was a concept that has been adopted. It's in our transportation system plan, but it merely indicates there should be an additional crossing somewhere between Ivy and Locust.
Somewhere, okay.
So that could be at Knott
Could be at
instead
Knott,
of
Could be at
or
Knott.
Juniper.
Right.
Well, not Juniper, probably, well, safety-wise, maybe not Juniper.
Question now. Procedure-wise, when we had set this up, it was a C1, a C2 zone, and it was planned. Shortly after then, was the overlay put in, or at the same time to protect that?
This was 2008,
Yeah.
and zoning was 70s, so.
I mean, was there some time that the people who were involved at that time felt, we want to protect this? So we go ahead and put this overlay over the top of it, protect it so we don't run into those problems. Is that true?
I think what, from reading the staff reports and things from 2007, when they started this overlay process, it was indicated that the only change of uses that the overlay was going to cause on any properties is to allow some residential uses in commercial districts that weren't otherwise allowed. Otherwise, there was no change in uses permitted. And so the effect of the overlay district was to bring architectural and some development standards that have to do with building placement and orientation in relation to other buildings into those properties that have that overlay district. So if we had other commercial areas in town that didn't have this overlay, they wouldn't be subject to these specific design and architectural standards.
So it was kind of protecting that zone with some criteria that we wanted to put in there.
That's right, it's
Okay.
an overlay, more regulations to get that idea of better quality development in this location.
Okay.
It regulates the design more than the use.
Sure.
And that's what, and so within that corridor, we have something like O'Reilly's that has gone in, and they had to meet that criteria of this particular overlay piece. Okay. I don't know if I think so. Yeah, I think that answers
Anything down
my.
here?
I do have questions, but I'm anticipating that the
Okay.
further presentations.
If it's just not for clarification, there's questions during, we can wait, because we will be talking about it at the end of this.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, good.
Now, if you're going to have a question at some point, you don't have to do it during your time at the podium here. We're not really taking questions. We should not be taking questions, I don't believe, from the audience, should we? It's not a,
Not at this point.
that's what I thought.
Yeah.
Okay, so now we have the applicant.
Yeah.
And move this up on the computer, should we say here? Should operate again.
That's the North Ridge.
We might prefer to sit there and just
Okay.
use your mouse. That's right.
You're going to leave me?
You're warmer than the computer, but I kind of want to be able to mouse my way around.
Please have both of you identify yourself for the
Yes,
record.
thank you. I am Lee Layton with Westlake Consultants, 15115 Southwest Sequoia Parkway, Suite 150 in Tigard.
And I'm Steve Abel. I'm a lawyer with the Stoll Reeves office, 900 Southwest 5th Avenue, Portland, Suite 2600, 97204.
What I'd like to do, I have 9 copies here to give you. This is an excerpt of the same presentation materials that we used with your planning commission. And in case you can't see everything that we're looking at on the screen very conveniently, this is simply a set of the slides that I'll be referring to this evening for your convenience. And it's the same thing we used with the planning commission. And I want to thank the staff for setting this up and for all the help that they've given us in this process. It's been quite a learning curve, learning how Canby's ordinances work and the layered structure of its base zoning and the overlays.
and they helped us get to where we are. We knew we would be coming to your council ultimately for our final decision. We had hoped to be here with the recommendation of the Planning Commission, but we are here to tell you, give you our perspective on this site and how it should be treated in your zoning, and give you an opportunity to ask questions of us. So, and I don't want to cover too much ground. I'm going to try to respect your time limits. We're talking about this little rectangle right here when you look at the larger map. Your planner, sorry, Angie, shared with me some geographic information system data. We were hoping to bring in the parcel data and some work in progress for where she has been trying to draw the downtown Canby overlay boundary and the inside sub-area boundaries. But when we imported them on our system, they didn't overlay and scale correctly, so I wasn't able to do an actual takeoff of the area of this property. But this rectangle we're talking about, it's a half a block. It is 3/4 of an acre. And just visually, if you compare that little rectangle there to the size of the core commercial area, by my visual estimate, I think it's maybe 2 or 3% of the land area that is now in the core commercial. In other words, this is now this red color, and we're proposing to make it more of this gray color like you see in the outer highway commercial. So we're talking about a very, very small amount of land as a change in the downtown Canby overlay. And that's the wrong button. Okay, so we've covered the location. This is an aerial photo view, kind of zooming in on it to show the subject property location. This would be Locust Street right here. This is Knott, which we've been talking about as a possible crossing location. This, I believe, is Juniper. Here is Ivy. It's one of your secondary nodes for your downtown. This is Grant, and down here is Elm. These, of course, are the primary crossings across the railroad tracks to get into your downtown core area, which is primarily not along Highway 99. And then over here, there really is no pedestrian or vehicle connectivity anywhere to the immediate east or north, as you look at it, from the nearby Ivy Street. In other words, none of these streets contributes to crossing the railroad tracks and getting into the downtown core. You really have to come all the way over to Ivy, which is appropriate because this is where the signalized protected intersection is. And this is the design review presentation and not the text amendment presentation. Do we have the wrong file? It's not what we used before. Okay. So this is why we bring our old-fashioned technology.
So you could have sat next to me. Oh, you're gonna.
Never make your own attorney mad at you. Okay, so with your indulgence then, boundary. Okay, so we need to review. We have a cover page, so stick with me because we're going to have to turn pages together because this isn't an anchor point we can use. The second page is a spotting map, which is a demographic thing that we don't need to look at just for a moment. So the third page is the Downtown Canby Framework diagram. This is unadulterated. It's as it appears in your plan. And I'd like to say a few words about the level of focus. As Angie noted, when she tries to find these boundaries, sometimes they appear to cut across parcels. They're a bit ambiguous. There was a question of whether the boundaries are arbitrary at particular points. I think it's rather more a function of the level of detail that you can take in when you're planning in different scales. You can think of it as being in a hot air balloon or flying over, where, you know, at 30,000 feet you can see all of the city of Canby, make out where the urban area ends, etc. you can't really see granular detail very close up. You get down to something more like, 4,000 or 5,000 feet, about a mile high, you really could make out this whole highway corridor and start to see the structure of it. But you wouldn't be able to precisely say, gee, the boundary between the outer highway and the core commercial should be right there from that high up. When you come down closer and closer, and even as we get to later imagery here, we'll take some look at what it looks like to stand on the corner and look around. And you see a completely different set of things when you're at that position, 5 feet off the ground, at eye level, than you do from way high up. So it isn't that these boundaries are arbitrary, it's that they are they're based on the scale of the analysis that the group is doing at that time. And the point of that is, this plan needs your help. Because as we go forward into implementation, when somebody comes in to talk with your staff, how are we supposed to make this work? We think this site would be suitable for this kind of use. Staff may agree, it does seem suitable for that kind of use, but it looks like there's this overlay that expects something very different there. Well, at that point, it's appropriate to look back at on the ground level, what's this environment really giving us? And maybe it is appropriate to fine-tune exactly where that line should land. And that's what I want to talk with you about